Martin Townsend, Director of BREEAM at BRE. I've just put a few slides together, nothing too heavy, because what I want to try and do, as I just sort of said there, is I think it's important today as we kind of have our conversation around what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because I've said this to a few people today, this is really quite exciting at the moment. The whole debate around sustainable buildings and our understanding about the form, the function and how we operate them is a great debate at the moment. And Digital Reality Trust are one of the organisations that's got it, basically, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not just saying that because we're jointly hosting it, but the conversation I've had with them over the coming weeks and months has been really quite exciting about how can we really make sure that we demonstrate to the industry that we understand about the benefits of buildings and making sure we push the envelope in terms of how we can make them more sustainable. Now, I was sort of thinking about this last night. There's so many ways I could cut this conversation in terms of how do you frame it? How do we talk about sustainability in the context of buildings? So I was going to just go with the flow a little bit in terms of where we are in terms of the current economic issues at the moment in the UK. I picked this up from the Financial Times a few days ago, and I think it kind of embraces what Jim and I have been talking about for a number of weeks and months now, is that the whole issue about sustainability isn't just about this credential, this certificate that you put on the building and the lobby and saying, you know, this is a green building. This is about the wider debate in terms of making sure that we create buildings and we operate them in a way that is in the context of long-term sustainability in terms of economic, social and environmental credentials. And I thought that was quite a good starting point for me, because it really does encapsulate, I think, what this conversation is a little bit about. Words are great, but I did a little bit of research last night. And what I did is I took a number of companies that basically are taking the approach of certifying their buildings. So that's basically saying, I want to make sure that my buildings are certified to show that I am going further than the regulatory minimum. And then I compared them with their counterparts on the various stock markets. And I think this is part of that first picture in terms of when we talk about economic success, it's about having that credentials to make sure that economic success is a real one. And I think that was quite a telling spreadsheet when I produced it, and I was quite pleased when it came out that when you start to look at the different organisations that really are building their credentials of their organisations and demonstrating to the marketplace they want to go further, you can start to see that in economic terms it does really work. I'm a firm believer when I talk to people that I can bounce facts and figures, but it's important to actually have third-party verification of what I'm talking about, set by a certification body, I suppose. What I've put up there is a slide, which there again I think is quite a useful one to frame the conversation, which is one taken from the World Green Building Council. Wider than just data centres, it's talking about what are the benefits. If you're building this business case and demonstrating to the marketplace, why should I want to go beyond the regulatory minimum? Well, here starts to become some of the compelling arguments. You can start to see the building values go up. You can start to see the occupancy goes up. You can see the operating costs coming down. That really does become quite compelling in terms of saying, well, why should I want to do more? Why would I want to actually really kind of push the envelope in terms of how that building is demonstrating its sustainability? I've got similar numbers for the UK market, and then interestingly for rental prices and building values, they're actually even higher. We're doing a little bit of work at the moment with Maastricht University to try and really add some granularity in terms of the UK market and the European market, but on a global level that's quite a telling slide, I think. And that brings me to this one. This is I think one that basically embraces the relationship between BREEAM and Digital Reality Trust, because what we've actually got there, I think, pulls together all the elements that we're trying to demonstrate through this relationship. Digital Reality Trust want to actually demonstrate to the marketplace, and rightly so, how they can exemplify and how they can push the envelope in terms of their buildings and their data centres. And working with us, we can actually make sure that we provide the tools which works with the governments in the various countries where we have BREEAM adopted to ensure that we're building that capacity, making sure that that knowledge and that skill is in advance of the current standards. Also, it's basically about ensuring that the information that comes from the work we're doing is actually out there. So hence today, actually inviting you to talk to us and to engage with us and have a conversation about, well, what does this mean? If we're trying to actually push the envelope in terms of sustainable buildings, sustainable data centres, what does that look like in terms of actually the underlying messages? So that engagement is important. And together, this kind of relationship which we're forging really helps to take this whole debate forward, catalyses this debate in a much more positive way. And then my last slide, I said I was going to keep it simple and brief. This is very much a global agenda. And a point I wanted to end on, although BREEAM is one of the rating tools in the marketplace, it's not the only tool in the marketplace. And the conversations that I'm now having, and some of you who might have been at EcoBuild might be aware, talking freely now with our competitors in the marketplace, with LEED and Green Star, to say, okay, so if we really want to demonstrate what sustainability means in terms of the fabric of the building, we need a common language. Because people like Digital Realty Trust are an organisation that works across boundaries of countries. So we need to give them tools and we need to give them the metrics which basically they can demonstrate that all of their buildings work to a particular standard. And we started that process with LEED after the 3rd of March when we launched the initiative to make sure that organisations, corporate organisations that want to work across boundaries really do have a standard which can be consistently measured across all countries. So for me, this is an exciting time around this whole debate. I'm really excited to be working with Jim and his team about what's going on and making sure that we can exemplify the buildings they produce. But it's also a wider conversation, and one which I think everybody working together and communicating some of the advantages of what we're doing becomes a really powerful message.
So whenever I talk about green IT or the green story, I always try and come back to the principles that drive us and how we think about it. And for us, green is efficient, and there's really two areas where efficiency matters for us. The efficient use of capital, which is in our case is a design element. We're trying to, for the same X amount of capital, we're trying to get more product out, more useful energy for the customer. When we're more efficient with capital, it delivers higher returns for our shareholders. And when we build a more efficient operation, it delivers lower operating costs. So those are two areas we focus on, always in design and build in the capital side, and then always focusing on operations. And what we found as this kind of green IT story developed was we were already doing this, right? This is what good developers do, is you improve your performance. We didn't know it was called the green story, and now that we've embraced that, it's been a very healthy and proactive thing in that this meets the goals that we have for our investors and the product goals for our customers, and really important is the existing industry incentives are aligned with what we're doing. Right? This isn't an area where we've had to be forced to do anything. Just a little bit of sensible thought around the tax incentives available, the rating systems available. They're compatible with our existing business. And so that's an important lesson that we have to learn, and we're trying to teach everyone is there's a ton of marketing opportunity and a ton of customer value here, but it all makes really, really good business sense. So just about us and how the BREEAM certification fits for us is we own about 13 million square feet of technical real estate. And so these are very, very materials intense spaces. They're filled with copper and steel and concrete and iron and wire. We've done about $1 billion of development over the last 4 or 5 years. So this is a big, important piece of what we do and has an impact on, the BREEAM can impact so much of it. But it's very important also to note that a data center is really just an asset in a building. Right? This is about people who build buildings, and the BREEAM assessment tool is all about the building. So there's much debate in the industry about, well, is BREEAM or LEED or their cousins, are they an appropriate tool for data centers? And they may or may not be, and that's a fun debate to have typically after work in the pub. But certainly for people like us who are institutional real estate firms, these are definitely important. And as developers who are delivering quite a bit of product to the market, it becomes even more important on the new construction side. I wanted to pause for a second and just to make clear what the press release is about and what our relationship with the BRE team is about. The BREEAM assessment methodology is out there, it's known. And so depending on the type of asset you have, the base BREEAM assessments may or may not be the perfect thing for you. And so BREEAM has a governance model where people like us with a different type of asset class can go ahead and introduce specific BREEAM assessment techniques and write the foundation for those. something that the other assessment tools don't have. And so what we've done is we've paid a third-party consultant to write that data center standard. It's been an independent process with good, healthy review, and it's just one way for us to say, look, we'd like to put our foot forward and push this process further, provide some cash to do it, and then deliver it out to the industry. So that's what this is about, is this completion of that assessment process for the specific data center asset class. So why BREEAM? We do a lot of primary research. We've been doing it for years. We have a great group. We do this globally, and we do a lot of searching and benchmarking for unaided brand recognition for a lot of different products in our product set, our names, and these assessment methods are part of that. And we see that senior executives definitely recognize BREEAM and LEED as important assessment tools. We're talking in the over 50% name recognition now, and we've seen that name recognition really advance with each survey that we've done each year. So what we're finding from the customers is that they see this as a benefit because it gives them a mechanism to talk back to their boards and their governance and their sustainability people and show that on one hand, a simple term, they can outsource some of their green strategy, but more importantly, it shows them using appropriate sustainability assessment tools for their vendors, right? So maybe BREEAM doesn't push it over the line for a particular project that we do, but the fact that we are focused on it and we have that story to tell as part of the requirements process is important for the management teams. The thing I've already mentioned also is the governance model for BREEAM. I'm very pleased with our ability to engage the BRE, have sensible conversations, and have an engineering and metrics-driven communication around what we're trying to do. So that's been very helpful, and that's not always the case with some of the other systems that are out there. And then the piece that probably matters the most to me is the assessment methodology and the approach is very helpful for my delivery teams. If I build a data center that costs, say, $10 million, the design and construction teams are focused on the things that cost $1 million. They're focused on the generator and the power and the chillers. Their incentive is to forget about the details. And so much related to sustainability is about the details. Things like, did we do a fundamental commissioning of the spaces? Did we specify non-volatile organic compounds in the adhesives? Did we write a manual for the operators of the building that talks about the sustainability things we put in design? And so the assessment method provides this really important template for best practices that my team wouldn't have developed on our own, right? We're too focused. We lose the forest through the trees on these. And so that's probably been the best benefit for us, is focusing the teams on senior management and customers are focused on this, and now you guys have to go execute to this benchmark. So that's probably my favorite outcome of the process. And so what the commitment that we've made is that all of our international buildings will be BREEAM assessed. Once again, going back to its governance model, the methodology can go international. It should be neutral country to country, and there'll be some conflict there. There'll be some things in some countries that don't quite fit, and we'll accept either less points or more points for some of those. That'll be okay. Our target to the senior team is a good rating. So up at my level, when we talk about budgets and things that we're going to do that are going to impact the business, I upward management-wise, I report good as my target. Downward management-wise, I put a stretch target of very good out to the teams. Our history with LEED was we thought we'd focus on silver and get some golds where we could, and now a year into LEED, pretty much everything we do is gold. And I expect the same type of behavior to happen. As I don't want to be too aggressive in setting a target that we don't know about, but as we go and we gain more experience, it becomes easier and easier to get the higher targets.
So do you mean international, do you mean non-US?
Non-US, correct. Yeah. So as very good, my expectation is, the first round, many of the assessment items are related to pre-development. So the things that I have under assessment now, I'm looking at some goods. But as we go to the next round, where the new acquisitions and new development plans, we have BREEAM in the back of our minds, we're going to be able to push up that performance. And the other thing we're committed to is this extensive promotion and sharing of our experiences. In our business, many people think that the data center business is filled with proprietary information, and many of the big internet enterprises and corporate customers feel like they have a lot of competitive advantage in the data center space. Our view is our competitive advantage is our ability to execute. So we've gained a lot of brand awareness by sharing information, and we're going to continue that. We think our audacity with some of the things we do is really what protects us, and so we want to keep that information out there to keep the pressure on us. What we found in the LEED process was, you're building in 4 or 5 locations like we are here in Europe. you've got one architect engaged, one engineer engaged, and they probably have never done this. Well, the fact that we've done it one time more than they have gives us an edge on experience. And so we found that we are teaching big parts of the industry about these. And so we'll continue to do that. We have a coordinator in our Boston office, one of our architects, who plays that knowledge transfer game between firms. So it's a little bit of a hard thing for me to be paying for the services and then teaching the vendors at the same time. But we've been able to negotiate a few discounts on some of those. But that was an important point for us, is now we have a stable pool of technical resources who can go execute these projects, and we don't need a lot of intervention. And they know what to do after the second or the third project.